Konbanwa, Pat Tokuyami here, creator of All Day I Eat Like a Shark, where I share my Japanese cooking videos once a week showing you guys how to make Japanese food. If this is your first time here, consider subscribing for more videos like this one. Today what we're going to be doing is making matcha biscotti, and essentially that's going to be green tea biscotti. As usual, I have all of my ingredients here ready to go. I have some matcha powder. This is from Mizuba Matcha in Portland, and I'm bringing this video in partnership with Mizuba Matcha Tico to you today. We're going to use about 2 tablespoons of their matcha powder, and we have 2 cups of whole wheat pastry flour in here. So we're just going to combine all the dry ingredients together first. And if you're wondering what whole wheat pastry flour is, it's in between cake flour and whole wheat flour. So it's kind of like an in between, and it's not as dense as whole wheat flour and it's not as light as cake flour. It's like an in between. If you don't have whole wheat pastry flour, what you can do is try to make something similar, which would be about half whole wheat flour, half all-purpose flour. It's going to be a little bit more dense. Or you could also do half whole wheat flour and half cake flour, which will also be a little bit more dense. So those are a couple ideas that you can try, or you can just get whole wheat pastry flour and make it like I do. So we have our dry ingredients just about done. I'm going to put in about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to put in about a 1/2 cup of brown sugar. Make sure those ingredients are combined. Here I have about a 1/2 cup of slivered almonds. We're going to do about a 1/2 tablespoon of baking powder, about 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and about a 1/4 cup of white chocolate chips. And then we're going to do 3 eggs, and that'll essentially be it. So I have my oven preheating right now to about 350 degrees, and we're going to bake it for about 20 minutes. And then at that point, we're going to have to take it out and then cut it and then flip it over on its side. That's why it's called biscotti, because that means twice baked. If you've never made biscotti before, that's essentially how you make it. So this is very similar to my hazelnut and chocolate biscotti, only we're using tea. So check that recipe out. I'll link it in the card above, or I'll link it down in the description below. All right, so it's just a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, and that'll be our last ingredient. Then we'll do 2 teaspoons of the vanilla extract. You can also put almond extract if you want, but I feel like the almond flavor from the nuts is just fine. And we'll put in the 3 eggs here. And as soon as this comes together, we can drop in the chocolate chips, the white chocolate chips. So some tips about making biscotti if you've never made it before. You can use wet hands to shape the log. You want to shape it into an oblong shape. You can use also plastic wrap if you don't want this batter to stick to your hands. So that's one tip. Second tip is to use a serrated knife. When it's done baking the first round, you're going to cut it with a serrated knife. It helps to cut it in a cleaner fashion as opposed to using just a regular chef's knife, for example. You'll get a cleaner cut with a serrated knife, so make sure you use that. So third tip is when you do use a serrated knife, make sure to saw as opposed to just pushing down like you would with a chef's knife. Totally different technique there. If you don't have parchment paper and you have a silicone baking mat, which I'd recommend getting one if you bake a lot. That's one of the benefits about using the silicone silpat, is that you don't have to use cooking oil or butter or flour or anything like that. It's optional, so it'll help to make your biscotti look a little bit nicer. Alternatively, you could just use cooking spray if you don't have any parchment paper or the silpat. You can also use butter, of course. And if you do have parchment, that's also another alternative. That's the, I think, 3rd tip. So the 4th tip is after you cut it, make sure that you put them onto a wire rack so that they cool. Otherwise, if you put them too close together or you put them in the container, an airtight container, too soon, they're not going to be as crunchy because they might steam and give off a little bit of moisture first. So tip number 5 is to put them into an airtight container. I usually use some sort of glassware and make sure that the lid is sealed tight so that they stay crunchy for at least a week. And usually by that time, they'll all be gone. So those are my tips for making biscotti. If you have any other tips or suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments below so that we can all learn, and we'll go ahead and finish this up. Alright, so my biscotti batter is just about done. I'll show you how it looks. It's a little bit loose, but it'll come together in just a little bit. And then we'll add in the white chocolate chips and then the almond and shape it. So double dose of caffeine. I usually eat my biscotti with some coffee in the morning. Nice little boost. You may want to go easy on the matcha if you're sensitive. Just do like a tablespoon instead of 2 tablespoons, but I personally like it to be nice and strong. Throw in the almond. And then, like I said, about a 1/4 cup of white chocolate chips. So I'm just going to incorporate these dry ingredients, the nuts and the chocolate chip, into the batter. You can also dust this with a little bit of powdered sugar once it's done if you want to give it a nice snowy look. It's a perfect snack for when you're on the go. Alright guys, so here is the log. You want to shape it into an oblong shape, so kind of like a disc. And depending on how thick you like your biscotti, I don't really like it too thick, so I usually do it about 3/4 of an inch tall. You can actually put some turbinado sugar on top too, if you like things a little bit contrasty with a little bit of a crunch. Actually, I think I might do that. So try to make it nice and rounded on the edges. I think this looks pretty good to me. So this is the final shape. Essentially, this is about how big it's gonna be. It's not gonna expand. So just keep that in mind. You can make them really small if you wanted to. Just divide this in half. And put on some turbinado sugar here. All right, and so now we're gonna bake this for about 20 minutes. At that point, you're gonna have to take it out and then we'll cut it and then we'll put it on its side and then we'll finish baking it at a lower temperature, about 300 degrees Fahrenheit for another 15 minutes. And then at that point, it'll be done. Go ahead and put this in and I'll see you back in about 20 minutes. Okay guys, so the biscotti's just about done for the first bake. I'm gonna go ahead and take it out. Here's how it looks. Turn on the oven temp to 300. If you can go ahead and slide that off and give it a nice cut. So if you wanted to, you can cut this at an angle, maybe like a 30-degree angle if you like that look. But I just like mine straight edge, so we'll just cut it that way. And like I mentioned, make sure to saw. And in terms of thickness, I usually like mine about a 1/2 inch thick. So depending on how thick you like your biscotti, you can cut it thicker or thinner. You can see all the steam is coming out. And because it has nuts, sometimes you might get a little piece like that that breaks off. No big deal. So now what we're gonna do is just put it back on and let it finish baking for another 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, roughly. All right guys, so I'll see you back in another 15 minutes. So I guess question of the day, have you ever tried baking with matcha before? If you have, let me know in the comments below, what did you make? And if you haven't, do you think you'll be trying this biscotti recipe? Let me know. Okay guys, so the biscotti has been baked the second time. Go ahead and take it out. This is how it looks right now. We're gonna go ahead and cool it on the wire rack, and this will be my breakfast tomorrow with a little bit of coffee. So if you have any questions or comments, make sure to leave them below. And if you like this video, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one. And anything I forgot to say, I'll leave them below. And other than that, I think I'll see you in my next video. Jane, bye bye. Oh yeah, and the whole wheat pastry flour, I think I missaid it the first time. Whole wheat pastry flour is in between cake flour and all-purpose flour. It's in the middle because it's made with soft wheat, soft red wheat instead of hard red wheat. And because of that, it has less gluten, which makes it less heavy than regular whole wheat, which is hard wheat. So keep that in mind. You can get it online. Bob's Red Mill is the one I used today, and yeah, just wanted to mention that. I guess 2 pieces right there. Guess all the nuts are on the left side.